Okay? I can see it, but it doesn't exist. And, you know, I was near the door in the back of the room. I was always closest to the door because I was having so much problems at school. And, you know, I'm like, okay, whatever, you know, if you got a dot that doesn't exist, I can go with that for now. And then he said, this is a series of dots that he placed together and made a line and said this is dimension 1 and it doesn't exist either. It still doesn't have volume. And, you know, that seems consistent to me. Then he placed a bunch of lines that are made out of dots together, made a plane, called it 2D, and said this is the dimension that you live, that your comic strips lives in. It still doesn't exist. It still doesn't have volume. Well, until then, although, you know, it was kind of a bizarre approach, it was consistent. But then he did something that seemed like a miracle. He grabbed 6 of these planes and put them together on the blackboard, made a cube, and said, this is dimension 3, 3D, that one you exist in. And I was in the back of the room, and I'm like, oh my God, how can that be? And I could tell that all the other kids in the room were like, huh? You know, but nobody was saying anything. I wasn't about to put my hand up because I knew the next thing that was going to happen is the door was going to get open and I was going to get kicked out again. So I didn't want to do that. So I didn't say anything, but it didn't make sense because it's like that was a mystery cube. Because if you have a dot that doesn't exist, that makes a line that doesn't exist, that makes a plane that doesn't exist. You slap 6 non-existing planes together, you don't get existence. All you get is non-existence to the 4th. Okay? It's got nothing to do with existence. You just have got a bunch of non-existing dots together, so nothing exists. And that was not logical. And I have a tendency to be an extremely logical human being. And it turns out that Buckminster Fuller, I found out later, had the same problem at school. He wrote about it in his book. And he didn't understand how this worked neither, and he didn't thought it was correct. And actually, through my research, I found that this is an ancient riddle. It's mentioned in ancient manuscripts that are from the Middle East and so on, and there is all sorts of treaties about this problem, although this problem is the foundation of our understanding of physics and dimensions. And all of our knowledge is actually based on it. And it creates a lot of problems. This simple riddle that is unsolved has generated a whole set of distortion in our societies and in the way we do physics and the way we understand the universe and how we relate to it. And we're going to see that today. We're going to see this error just come back and bite us in the butt every time we come around the corner. You all following this? Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I was going home from my school that night, and I had an hour and a half bus ride back home.
In environmental news, worldwide earthquakes are at an all-time high. The land over the North American caldera in Yellowstone National Park has risen over 10 inches. A worldwide magnetic polar shift continues to wreak havoc on airline traffic as magnetic drift has sped up enough to change runway headings in less than 1 day. Coronal mass ejections, otherwise known as CMEs, and sunspot activity continue to break records, dramatically affecting weather and electromagnetics, including animal migrations, on the planet Earth. Despite all this, self-proclaimed environmentalists continue to focus on such things as logging and the fact that humans, whom are omnivores, continue to eat meat.
Ist hier Mama mit dir? Schmatzi, schmatzi. Ja, es ist gut. Es schmeckt mir so gut.
The modern Egyptian saga continues and continues to show similarities to that of Iran of the 1970s, as the military solidifies its national power by killing the protesters that helped put it into power. As the Egyptian people now race against time to write and install a new constitution of their own design before the military does, similarities to many other countries, past and present, also begin to present themselves. Sadly, if the people of Egypt do not install a new constitution of their own design within the next several days, they seemingly will never have retribution or justice for their members that have been murdered by the military, as the military is also feverishly attempting to write its own version of a new constitution. The similarities that arise from the events seem to center around the proverbial elephant in the room. That is to say that Egypt already has a constitution that was abused, misused, and altogether ignored. Just like other constitutional democratic republics around the world, the tenets of government for and by the people, if they are observed and guarded, dictatorships, military coups, and the abuse of the power thereof become all but impossible. The situation in Egypt dramatically highlights the absolute necessity to peacefully and properly guard and implement constitutional principles and hold the interests of the citizenry above all else. The conditions facing Egypt and many other democratic republics around the world is the reason behind the founders of the U.S. system of government adopting a policy of avoiding what they called entangling alliances, as these alliances will and do eventually compromise the integrity of the constitutional requirements and the representatives thereof. In short, forgetting, ignoring, skirting, or in any other way circumventing constitutional principles and edicts have only come to one outcome. No other outcome has ever been recorded in human history. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Common Sense News. Thank you for joining us. I'm Davis. Stick around for our segment called The Lighter Note. Have a good day.
asleep. There's no give and take, I'm just feeling the breeze, and she's letting me swing, baby, begin down on me.
I know how to sing that.
Yeah, rock it.